Do you own an Ableton Push but are having difficulties understanding how to make music on it? Well, if that's the case, you're in the right place. My name is Ishan Kadaru, also known as Push for Life, and thank you for taking the time to check out my new online series, Making Music with Ease on Ableton Push 2. Now, in this video, I'd like to give you a deeper understanding of what awaits you in stage 1 of this series, which is dedicated to the process and workflow of composing on Ableton Push 2. But before we get into that, I'd like to give you a little context as to how this series came about. Aside from having one of the most popular Ableton Push 2 tutorials online, second only to Ableton themselves, for the previous 20 years before that, I was a successful session musician working with Grammy Award winners like Imogen Heap, Blue Man Group, and Cirque du Soleil, to name a few. Now, whilst I was on the road with Cirque du Soleil in North America in 2010, my life took a pretty dramatic turn. I was diagnosed with chronic kidney failure, which meant that both of my kidneys just stopped working. And from one day to the next, I went from being a pro session musician on tour in North America to a chronically ill dialysis patient who needed treatments every other day. But luckily, things took another dramatic turn a few years later when I received a kidney transplant from my mother. Once my life started to get back in order, it was clear that I wasn't going to return to life on the road as a session musician, and there was a huge creative void that just was longing to be filled. And it was shortly after that that I saw Ableton's portrait of Jonathan Stein, the Ableton Push wizard, and that just blew my mind. It changed everything for me, and I just had to have one. So I decided to gather all of my savings that I had left, and I decided to purchase the then newly released Ableton Push 2, and I instantly fell in love. And during that period, I was scouring the internet for tutorials, and if I'm honest, I was really kind of disappointed. I found there were two types of tutorials. On the one hand, there were tutorials where people just assumed way too much foreknowledge of the push itself, and they would end up showing how things were done, but they would skip the steps in between, and that kind of just left me pretty confused, to be honest. And then there was the other tutorials where I just felt like people wanted to show off their skills at how good they could master the push, which is fine, but that wasn't really helping me on my personal quest to learn the push. So after weeks of studying my Ableton Push day in and day out for hours on end, I finally started to grasp what the Ableton Push was all about. And I just decided to document what I'd learned, recorded a video, and uploaded it to YouTube. And soon thereafter, I started receiving comments and emails from all over the world with people thanking me that I'd put this online. And one of the things that really stood out to me was that they were saying that they were so happy that I kept things simple and for beginners and straight to the point. So really, it was in that moment that I realized that there was a real need for tutorials for people who had no foreknowledge whatsoever with the Ableton Push. And that really was the birth of this series, Making Music with Ease on Ableton Push 2. So for stage 1 of this series, I decided to base the lessons on my most popular YouTube video, the top 5 things that every Ableton Push 2 beginner should understand. I make sure to keep things simple and straight to the point, explaining every step along the way in order to help you understand the core processes and workflows you will need in order to compose your own music on the Ableton Push 2. Unlike other courses I've found out there so far, stage 1 of this series doesn't assume any foreknowledge of the push whatsoever, and I make sure to only show you what is necessary in order to compose your own music. I try to leave out any unnecessary steps that I don't really think are of any value to you, and all of that at a very reasonable price. So let's take a closer look at stage 1 of this series. Now, as stage 1 is all about composing on Ableton Push 2, I take you through all of the necessary steps in order to understand the processes and workflows you'll really need to understand in order to compose on the Ableton Push 2. And I give you insights that I have developed over hundreds of hours of practice on the Ableton Push 2. But one thing I really need you to understand is that Ableton Live and Ableton Push are a complete universe unto themselves. You can really do practically anything you want with audio and music production with this software and hardware. So things like sampling, sound design, and all kinds of other things. I want you to understand though that this stage 1 of this series is merely concerned with composing on Ableton Push 2 and the necessary processes and workflows in order for you to make your own music. So nothing more or nothing less. Now, if you decide to sign up for the course, you will get instant access to all of the content and files for streaming, but also for immediate download if you prefer. And I would encourage downloading all of the files so you have them on your computer for future use. Now, in terms of my personal approach when it comes to learning something as complex as the Ableton Push 2, I'm a huge believer in what is known as the 80-20 rule. Some people might know it as Pareto's Law. Now, this rule suggests that for 80% of the things you're going to want to do on your Ableton Push, you're only going to end up needing 20% of the features. So what I ended up doing is I ended up really researching the 20% necessary to understand of the Ableton Push in order to understand the different processes and workflows for composing on the Ableton Push. And that's something that I want to impart in this course for you. Because at the end of the day, it's not about twiddling all of the knobs and pushing all of the buttons on your Ableton Push. That's not the end goal. The end goal is getting the music that's in your head out there to the world. And this course will show you how to do that. So just to sum things up, what I'll be showing you in this course are my own personal tried and tested processes and workflows for using the Ableton Push to compose music. Now, if that's something you're interested in and you're not that familiar with my work, make sure to go to pushforlife.eu and check out what I've put out so far. I've got tutorials on there for free. I've got performances of me that I've posted on Instagram. You can watch all of that and just get a real feel for my own personal approach, because that's really important that that's something that you enjoy before signing up to take part in the course. You see, there are many roads that lead to Rome, and mine is really just one of many that will get you there. So if you're interested in participating, make sure to click on the link below, and that will take you to my premium portal where you can sign up and get started in no time. Thanks again for watching, and I look forward to seeing you on the other side.